We got a big Game 7 tomorrow night, right?
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
Pretty significant fever pitch for tomorrow night's Game 7 in Boston. People asking me for tickets. How would I have any tickets? I don't have any tickets. I'm not Morey. I'm not any of those guys. I mean, I don't know how to get tickets for the Bruins. But it's a life experience. A Game 7 in the Stanley Cup playoffs, never mind a final series, never mind your own home club. It's pretty significant. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Of course, the David Ortiz story has a, obviously it's got a tragic ring to it, but there's, I don't know. We're going to talk about that tonight with our guest from the staff of the WPRI Sports Department. Morey Hershgordon is with us this evening. In the meantime, let's cover a couple of things that are going on. By the way, thank you for checking in. This is kind of interesting. I don't know if you've been following this. I know there's a lot of Mexico talk and the tariffs, and we discussed that last night. But this is kind of fascinating. A couple of media sources are reporting this, that Donald Trump has polled 17 key states for re-election and found that Joe Biden was whipping them up, and in important Midwestern states and in places like Ohio, Pennsylvania. And what's interesting about this is that the data that he got, he didn't like. So according to the sources, and you may be one of those few people who consider sourcing fake news and all of that, but I think we're kind of by that at this point. Reportedly, according to sources, the president didn't like the numbers enough that he ordered that the numbers not be discussed. Now, that's not unusual for a candidate. What's unusual for a candidate, though, is to order people to mislead about the numbers, to actually talk differently about the numbers. If you get bad polling data, that's kind of internal, and you do what you can to turn it around. If you get bad polling data and you instruct people to talk differently about the polling data, that's just Trump world. But this notion that he's a lock is maybe exaggerated. This was his pollster, one of the top Republican pollsters in the country. This is his people, not the outside world. So, FYI on that. And of course, Sarah Sanders just spins. She spins.
Look, I think the polling got it completely wrong in 2016. I don't think it's right now. I'm not going to get into a lot of details, but we feel incredibly good about what the president has been able to accomplish in the first 2 years. I think Joe Biden has a lot of questions he needs to answer himself. The idea that he would say that the president poses any type of threat is truly laughable, considering he was part of the administration that allowed Russia to interfere in our election.
No matter the campaign rhetoric, here's what's interesting. Again, it's their polling data, not the media's, it's their polling data. And she's not denying that polling data is not very good for her boss. The other thing you got to remember is that she's the White House press secretary. She's not the campaign manager. And so somewhere along the line, they're going to have to make some kind of a call before they start violating all sorts of campaign law, as she's opining purely about polling data and elections. They've crossed that line so much they don't even know where it begins to blur. But people who, enforce these laws generally do. Let's move on here. The abortion bill is back, and tonight it is scheduled for a vote in Senate Judiciary. Now, we record the show in the early afternoon. This probably happened prior to even our 7:30 show, certainly prior to our midnight show, unless something surprised me. The swing senator, Stephen Archambault, has decided that he is in support of this new revised Roe v. Wade codification bill. And specifically, what it does is three things. It takes away some of the flimsy guardianship for minority girls. I'm sorry, for anybody under 18. Yeah, minority. Minors. I'm sorry, not minority. Minors who go for an abortion. So now grandpa and an aunt can't do that. It's got to be a parent. Secondly, it eliminates the quick child legislation, which is an old piece of legislation that valued the fetus's life in case of loss of life for the mother, and the fetus maybe to assault, murder, homicide, that kind of thing. The Attorney General is beefing up language to make that more palatable, if you will. And thirdly, a doctor's got to write a serious explanation into the record for any third trimester late-term abortion that he or she participates in. And the Department of Public Health, finds that as a reportable offense, or I should say a reportable incident, not offense, but incident, and then has the ability to investigate. That's enough for Archambault to say, yeah, he's ready to go ahead and support this. Now, that bill has got to go back to the House of Representatives for its own review. What's disturbing to me about this, the rules of the legislature, they change these three things between one draft and another, and there's very little chance for the public to react to it, if at all. And that doesn't make any sense. But you know what? They just want to close their eyes and be done with this as they hustle toward a codification of Roe v. Wade that I got to tell you, I personally feel is completely unnecessary, because I don't see the Supreme Court changing things, and if they did, they would empower the states to do their own business anyway. All righty, and finally here, be careful in the backyard. You're supposed to not worry about this because they don't really want you, so they say. Take a look.
Yeah, he was as tall as this hook.
Monty Crowley grabbed her cell phone and started rolling as a bear tore down her Cranston backyard bird feeders.
We're just gonna let this play out.
It was a similar scene at Hope Highlands Middle School Monday, Warwick Sunday, Narragansett weeks ago, and Coventry before that.
If you live in western Rhode Island, the rural parts of Washington, Kent, Providence County, this is the new reality.
Wildlife biologist Charlie Brown with the state's Division of Fish and Wildlife says 3 or 4 bears now call Rhode Island home.
We're at that point now where bears, are becoming established here.
That means more sightings, especially if there are bird feeders.
Well, a bird feeder could have a day's worth of calories in it, and it's a lot easier than picking one blueberry at a time.
Did you ever think when you guys moved here that you'd have to deal with it?
No, that wasn't in the welcome wagon brochure.
Brown said it's important to take down those feeders every year starting April 1st.
Yeah, so there's your, you know what, I know everybody gets really excited about this. I've had, I don't know, a half a dozen bear sightings in my life when I lived in the hills of northern Jersey. Yeah, Jersey is more than just the Caucasus, by the way. And we've got our own ruralness here that invites the bears. I guess they're migrating. Don't panic over this, but it's probably a good idea to take the advice and put the bird feeders away if you live in the woods. You're warned, but don't freak out. Just get on the phone, call the authorities. You'll be okay. They like you unless you don't like them, reportedly, unless it's a rare circumstance. I just claim that I know nothing about this. I just have had 6 experiences with bears. In the meantime, this is disturbing. Yeah. I don't know what's going on here. Here's the latest.
Red Sox legend David Ortiz arrived at Mass General Hospital late tonight.
The events of last night shook our Red Sox family to its core.
The team secured an air ambulance flying him back to Boston after determining his condition was still serious but stable enough to be transported. Ortiz has damage to his liver, his gallbladder, and part of his intestines were removed.
Please know that we are doing everything we can to support David and his family during this very difficult period.
Ortiz was shot sitting outside a bar with friends Sunday night in Santo Domingo. Surveillance video shows the gunman walk up to Ortiz from behind and open fire. Eliasel Salvador was sitting near Ortiz when the shooting happened. He drove him to the hospital in his own car. He spoke exclusively with our own Anaritas Rodriguez.
Give me your hand. I gave him my hand. I drove with one hand. We hit a few cars on the way, but we got there.
Ortiz left that hospital earlier tonight amid chaos. His father, Leo, was by his side in that ambulance heading to the airport, while his former teammates and adopted city sent their support.
I know he will be fine. I do trust that he'll be fine. So, that's what I want from everybody here, just stay positive and keep praying for him.
Look, I don't know if there's a more beloved figure.
There isn't.
Right? with the Red Sox?
I definitely don't think there is. I mean, Alex Cora called him larger than life. Eddie Romero, the general manager of the Red Sox, called him more famous than any president in the Dominican. Some high praise for Ortiz.
Well, yeah, so down there, so welcome, Morey. Good to see you. Is this... Here's the thing that bothers me most about this story, is the reporting on the story. So reportedly, as he's going, into surgery, according to sources coming out of the hospital and a reporter down in the Dominican, that he was, saying to the doctors, please don't let me die, I'm a good man. What somebody says in that traumatic position is their own self-protected business. Obviously, the HIPAA laws in the Dominican need some revising, because reportedly the doctors told this reporter that. And of course, American press can't just, everyone's got to. Did that bother you? It bothered the hell out of me.
Yeah, what, that line about him? About him
leave
saying
the guy alone. Obviously he's. I mean, I don't know what the relevance of that is.
Right.
What do most people do? Recite the Gettysburg Address when they're heading in for emergency surgery after being shot? I mean, it's just. I just think it was completely unnecessary.
Yeah.
At the same token, there's something wrong with this picture.
Yeah, it doesn't feel 100% right, for sure. Kind of just digesting everything and getting all the different bits and pieces. There's something missing, and I think that'll come out in the next couple of weeks. Hopefully it comes out in the next couple of weeks, because we know how David Ortiz is loved here in New England, and we know how much he's loved back at home. And there's a lot of people that'll want to squash something if there is something out there. There's been a ton of rumors, and we don't need to really speculate on that topic, but yeah, it's not good either way.
Well, a victim of something like this needs to be respected for being a victim. What scenario might have, first of all, nothing legitimizes that act, so I don't care what mess he's in or not in.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see here's what's going to be interesting. As a sports journalist, will we get whatever truth there is about this from the sports journalistic world or from the mainstream journalistic world?
We should see. It's going to be hard, because I think if you come at it via the sports angle, there's a lot of former athletes and friends and people he won championships
it's all
with.
wrapped up in that.
Exactly. That won't want to let that side out about this, about the truth. That maybe there is something that he's
as a
involved
sports
with.
journalist, are you listen, I'm not expecting you to do a Target 12 investigation on this, right?
We can leave that to Tim and Ted.
Right. But my point is that I think the sports journalistic world is kind of like
yes.
Right.
Yep.
But there'll be others that will do some work on this.
I agree.
We'll keep them in our prayers. When we come back, prayers of a different flavor, no doubt, for tomorrow night. Let's get into it next. All right, man. What's your take? This is a statement. Anytime you go and win in Game 6, the people of St. Louis talk about. If they pull this thing off tomorrow night, well then, okay then.
Right.
But
they have it all prepared.
But the whole tilt is, they all got to be feeling like, oh man.
Yeah, I mean, they've been tortured.
It slipped right through our fingers.
Outside of hockey, I mean, the Rams obviously were in St. Louis, lost to the Patriots in the Super Bowl.
Right.
They've been tortured by New England fans, Boston teams, for quite a long time. I think I've got a good feeling on the Bruins, and that's not, because we cover the Bruins and because we're here in New England. I picked the Bruins in 7 at the beginning of the series, and I truly believe that they are the better team at this point.
You did? Where's that on record? We have that anywhere?
Where is that? That's on our Chase for the Cup pregame show.
Okay. Just
Only
want to
on
make sure it's on record.
WPRI.com.
If anybody can say, oh yeah, I called it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I will say I didn't think it would be like this. I thought the Bruins would have jumped out to a couple games lead. I thought St. Louis would have taken care of home ice. There's been a lot more road team victories than I first expected, and I didn't think the Bruins would trail this series. However, they trailed 3-2, but they took care of business in Game 6. I don't have a score for tomorrow night quite yet, but I do have the Bruins coming out on top.
You know what's fascinating about hockey? It's such a game of momentum, and the team in these playoffs that has to win seems to come out so fast. And so clearly, the message in the locker room is you got to come out really fast. But the teams generally separate themselves in the first 5 minutes of a hockey game immediately. The rhythm is kind of amazing, isn't
Yeah,
it?
so I think the storyline going into Game 6 was the Bruins are going to have to hold off the flurry of shots from the Blues early on because the Blues tried to win that game in the first period, the first 5 minutes.
And I'm not sure the Bruins take enough shots, to be honest with you.
No, they pass the puck a lot. They try, for that pretty play, so to speak. But I think the Blues game plan is going to have to be similar to the Bruins in Game 6. It's the Bruins are going to have the home ice in Game 7. Their fans are going to be behind them. First ever Stanley Cup final game in Boston. They're going to come out and pepper Jordan Binnington for the first 5-10 minutes. And if the Blues can get out of there 0-0, maybe 1-0, it's probably a win for the Blues. But you look at so many different storylines. There's been no, even after a team has won in this series, they haven't been able to carry it over. They split in the first barn in Boston, then they split in St. Louis, then they split the last 2 games. So it doesn't really matter about momentum in this series. It's just going to be a 1 game to hoist the cup.
All right, Game 5 was very controversial. The big trip. We got headlines on that and all that kind of stuff. Kev, just roll all that stuff when you want to. Our director, Kevin, is actually, loving to get into this conversation. Just yell whatever you got to yell, Kev, over there. This notion that he took a flyer, I got to chase down Dundero. I need to remind us, we got to chase Dundero down. He tweets out his theory that the Johnston native took a flyer on that play, which was not called a penalty, which turned over the puck, which resulted in a goal,
Game-winning goal.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
I don't think you smack your head on the ice on a flyer unless you're really overdoing it.
So I see both sides. It definitely should have been called and should not have allowed the Blues to score a goal. However,
you think he embellished?
If you look at it, he did a little bit, yes, because he felt himself falling, and then that right leg and the skate flips way over as if he's trying to do a backflip.
Is Dondero correct?
I don't want to appoint Mark Dondero as being correct and the NHL being wrong, but I think there's a happy medium in there.
What did the NHL take a position on it?
No,
because you can't embellish, correct?
Correct, exactly. So if the ref felt that he embellished, maybe he holds the whistle and does not call it.
Gotcha.
If there was a little bit of both. So I think if he doesn't embellish, it's a true trip. But if he embellishes, the ref goes, well, it was a trip, but he also tried to embellish, so let's just kind of keep it as is, let play go. Then obviously the Blues scored the game-winning goal.
Well, it's water under the bridge when they win a Game 6. Will people, if they don't win tomorrow night, look back still at Game 5 is the big problem?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think you're in your own barn. You play the whole season to have home ice. You got 1 game in front of your fans to win it all. I think the Bruins are kind of happy with that.
Tuukka Rask playing out of his mind, huh?
Yeah, out of his
old
mind.
Hockey adage, he's been standing on his head most of the series.
Yeah.
Surprised by that?
145 saves and 149 shots in elimination games for the Bruins are series clinching wins this postseason. 5-0.
And even that particular, Kev, is that the goal? Was that the goal?
I think that looks like a save.
Okay, that's a save. Well, I mean, you want to talk about flexibility. These guys are like Gumby. But it was a save similar to that, which was the only goal. It turns out officially not to be a save because the puck crossed the goal. But the one goal he let in Game 6.
Correct. His pad
to
was
the
right
naked
there.
eye without cameras would never have been called a goal.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
Guy's hot as heck.
Very hot. I think he's got to be the best player on the ice for Game 7 if the Bruins want to get out of there.
First line carried the day for most of the playoffs, had a little bit of a slump here in this series, but it's all about them tomorrow night, or is it this fourth line that's going to end up playing a pivotal role?
Yeah, I don't know. I think if you're going to ask me a player that's not so high, not on the top line or heralded for the Bruins, I think is more of a Marcus Johansson. I think a lot of Bruins fans have grown a liking to him. He was picked up in the trade deadline in February, coming over to the Bruins, and he's been great on the third line. However, right before Game 6, Bruce Cassidy moves him up to the top line for the power play. He's got great stick handling ability. He can move the puck from the neutral zone into the offensive zone very great, and his playmaking ability is great. His IQ, all of his teammates really laud him for his IQ. So I think Marcus Johansson's going to be a player to watch. I think the most important player, though, is Tuukka.
What about Chara? He's an
ox.
Is there a tougher athlete on the planet?
No.
I mean, what's he taking? I mean, what's he taking to get out there and play as aggressively as he's playing with a jaw like that?
I think a big reason why he's even out there on the ice in the first place with a broken jaw is because he's 6'9". You have a guy like Bergeron and
Hard
Marchand.
to get hit up there? Is that what you're saying?
I think so. I think
really?
Because he's 6'9", if somebody tries to check him and jumps and leaves their feet, that's an automatic interference, boarding, whatever you want to call it.
Somebody took a shot at him in Game 6. Somebody took a little bit of a,
I
push
think
to the jaw.
easy for him to kind of turn
Couldn't
away.
remember who it was.
Yeah, it was Patrick Maroon, because
Yeah.
then Chara got called for the penalty on interference in front of the net.
Gotcha.
But you're just playing with a bigger boy.
Right.
I mean, don't pick a fight with a bigger guy, get thrown down to the ice, and then want a penalty. But I think Chara, I mean, he epitomizes what the Bruins are. I mean, he's tough, he's relentless, he's a great leader. From everything that I've
Does he
covered,
call it a
he's
day
honest.
if they win tomorrow night?
Ooh, it's a great question.
42 years old, right?
He's the Tom Brady of the Bruins. Knowing the athlete in him, I don't think so. We saw what Tom Brady just posted on Instagram the other night, picture of his 6 rings, and he says, "What's my favorite ring?" The next one. I think Chara has that same makeup, that same DNA.
Yeah, well, Father Time gets here once, eventually. So there was a poll recently about who's actually the favorite franchise. We'll ask Morey's thoughts on that when we come back. So tomorrow night we'll be on the edge of your seats. I got a buddy of mine who I love the superstition in sports. Got to go back to the same table in the same spot that he's watched 9 playoff games. He is 9-0 at his table at this establishment.
What happens the other
watching the
games?
Well, he didn't get there.
Got it.
There's like things going on, or watching at home.
Gotcha.
But
9-0 this postseason.
so we were together for Game 6.
Wow.
And we got to get the same table and the same seats.
Yeah.
Because he is 9-0, as if we had another
matters.
table or didn't get to that spot, it would matter. I just love that. Recent poll: Pats, Sox, Celtics, Bruins in order of popularity.
I think the Patriots are unquestionably number 1. I think.
I just have a little quarrel with the Celtic Bruin order there.
Yeah, because I'm going to
In
go.
general.
I think I'm going to go with Red Sox at 2.
Sure.
Oh, it's a good question.
Well, I think, listen, they're
the
more,
poll came out when? This year? Recently?
Yeah.
Well, I think during this Bruins winning streak and kind of the turmoil that ended the Celtics season, I think the Bruins maybe get the edge.
I think they're neck and neck
They are.
franchises,
They
right?
are,
I mean, if the Celtics are competing for an NBA championship, maybe it changes the nature. But the one thing about hockey fans, the rabidity of hockey fans is crystal clear.
Yeah.
And I would think that a parade will be as profound as any other.
Well,
right?
what's going to be worse for Boston PD on Wednesday night, Thursday morning? What's going to be worse, if the Bruins win or the Bruins lose? I mean,
I don't know.
It's going to.
What is going to be
Well,
worse?
I don't know. I'm posing that question.
You know what? It shouldn't be that it's worse if they win or lose. I mean, fans have got to learn to pay attention to the law.
Yes.
In the middle of all this. So you predict a win.
I predict a win.
You don't predict a score.
I don't have a score
We'll
quite
follow
yet.
you on Twitter.
I still
right?
need another
You're on
day.
Twitter. And
Exactly.
We'll catch you on
Hershgordon.
Twitter.
Or watch our Chase for the Cup coverage.
All right. Good luck to. I'm a Ranger fan. You know, I'm a New York guy, but I'm a Bruins empathizer.
Okay.
So I'm in this with you.
Nothing better than Stanley Cup final hockey.
No, I mean, gotta watch, must watch. Thanks, man.
Yeah,
Appreciate
no
it.
problem. Thank you.
Final word. So tomorrow night, Tom Ward will be here. He's the owner, publisher, former owner, still publisher of the Valley Breeze, which I've called the Bible of Northern Rhode Island. He sold the paper. A lot of locals are worried, oh no, now what? Quite the terrific small to medium business story, and quite the conversation about journalism tomorrow night. See you on the radio at 3 on WPRL. Good night.